right. Happy Friday, everyone. This is Mom at Home. I am your technical host with guest host Mr. Bill today. BJ Morgan here, marketing manager for the Museum of Making Music. Mom at Home is our live series. That's right. We are live right now, coming to you from Southern California. While we're under, so yeah, you can tell I'm not in my normal office space at the Museum of Making Music. I'm here at my home, coming to you at your home, hopefully. So I appreciate you inviting us in to explore today all about that electric bass. We have a special guest today. Mr. Michael Kennedy is a true friend of the museum, an exceptional musician, a wonderful bassist. As a drummer, it is our goal in life to meet as many exceptional bassists as we can, and we're quite honored to have met Michael in our journey. And I'm going to actually give you over to Mr. Bill, and he has a proper introduction for you to our guest today. Anyway, take it away, Mr. Bill.
Well, thanks, PJ. I don't know that I can do much better than that. That was as proper as it comes. You said we are coming to you live, and I would like to add to that we are very live with our special guest, Michael Kennedy. He's going to tear it up for us this afternoon and show us what all about that bass really means. Hey, Michael, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, glad to be here. How's everybody doing out there?
We're great! Woo!
Woohoo!
Answering for the world, I'd like to say. So I'll get a little background on you, Michael, then we'll jump into some questions and have you do some playing, show us what it's all about. So I'm looking at your bio here, and it says you are a self-taught bassist. You started playing bass at 13, yes?
Yes, that's about right. I come from a big family and 8 kids in the family, and I'm the last. I'm the baby. And most of the music in the family sort of funneled down to me. So I ended up with bass and drums and guitar and keyboards and a little bit of sax and all of that. And I didn't go to college, didn't have tutors, didn't have lessons. Nobody came over for my 4 o'clock music lesson after school. I am one of those God given talent guys, and I'm very blessed to be that. So here
Amen.
I am.
And we are very blessed that God gave you that talent and gave you to us. So let me back up. I want to really sort of give you some huge props here. Here's just, I'm sure, a partial list of people that you've worked with. I've got Stevie Wonder, Thelma Houston, Parliament Funkadelic, the Gap Band. You've toured with the Platters, the Bus Boys from the movie 48 Hours, Otis Day and the Nights from the movie Animal House, and I can't say that without a smile on my face because that's one of my favorite scenes in that movie. And you're it says here you're featured on several tracks by fellow bassist Marcus Slim Shaw on his album called Choice. And cap it all off, you're working on your own solo album. So everybody, big round of applause for Michael as we jump into this.
Woo!
So you kind of answered my first question, Michael. You said 8 kids, and the music just kind of filtered on down to you. So was it sort of being in that environment with the family all playing music? Is that what drew you into playing music?
You know, fa- being the youngest, I got to hear all of the stuff that everybody was playing on the stereo and the radio, what everybody liked in the house. My mother loved old jazz and blues. My dad was pretty universal. He liked anything that was good to him was good to him. Um, I have 2 brothers that play drums, one that played bass, one played sax, one played guitar. Somebody played clarinet in there somewhere. And here's the coolest thing. My oldest brother, and I'm going to quote him. My oldest brother said, "I play the stereo very well." So, so I thought he played an instrument. He said, "No, I play the stereo very well." So so I have all of it funneled down to me. So I play bass, guitar, drums, keyboards, baritone sax, and I sing, I write, I direct, I arrange, and I'm crazy. And I play bass mainly. Mainly, it's the girl. It's her mainly.
I think it's safe to say there's a little bit of crazy in all of us who jump into
Yeah,
this crazy world. But it's also love, you know what I mean? You love it when you're playing, you love the
yes,
way it feels, you love the way it sounds, and you also love seeing what you're giving to the audience, right? Because they're feeling that love and then they're sending it right back to you. I don't mean to get all 70s on you, but
no,
it's
no, no.
true. That's
You're
universal and always will be.
you're exactly right. I agree with you 100%.
So I love what you said about your dad. If it was good to him, it was good. It was
Yeah,
good to
he
him.
he liked blues, he liked jazz, he liked R&B. Whatever made him move and whatever made him whistle around the house, that's what he was doing.
What
So,
got inside him.
you know,
So you gave me quite a list of instruments. I knew you played a few of those. I didn't
yes.
realize all of them. I know you're one heck of a singer. Um, so was bass then the first instrument, or what was first?
I actually touched drums when I was about 7. One of my older brothers, they're all older, one of my brothers had a drum set that mom acquired at the music store. And he put it in the back room, and everybody's around and checking it out, and everybody's playing. And then they look over here in the corner, and there I am, the littlest guy sitting in the corner. Mike, come over here. What? Come over here. Here. And hands me the sticks. I'm like, okay. And then I started playing, and I ended up playing a good sort of pseudo James Brown beat because that's what I was watching in those days. my my brothers are they're all looking at each other, and they looked at me and said, "Hey, give me them sticks, get out of here." So that was my first touch of everything. I had a one of my brothers left a guitar in the closet. It had 3 strings out of 6 on it. The E string, I think the A string, and the B string. So there was some missing in the middle. And I sort of gravitated towards the E string and the A string. So I just got it and I started, oh, that's cool. Hey. And I just started playing that. And that's what I felt. I sort of gravitated right there. That's when I knew where the bass lines were, and that's where I wanted to be.
So just like when your brother handed you the sticks and you started grooving to James Brown, you picked up that guitar with the low E and the A, yes, and there
Yes,
was that root foundation that obviously is inside of you. You started playing that, and is it safe to say you knew right away then that's where you wanted to be? You wanted to be in that bass register.
it just felt right for me. It just felt right, and I just stayed with it.
Yeah, so that low end register is what spoke to you. We talk about
Yes,
that all the time. The instrument really does kind of choose us in a way, right? You know what I
right.
mean? Yeah.
Yes,
So it looks like you're holding a 4 string bass right there. Am I
I'm
correct?
holding a 5 string today.
5. I didn't
I'm,
catch
I'm
that one.
holding a
Okay.
5 string. Oh, Mrs. Tajima, Mrs. Tajima. This is a brand that I picked up that from Brazil, actually, Brazilian made, and I got a 5 string today. I have 4 string, and I have 6 strings, and I have fretless, and I have all kinds of other stuff. And Mrs. Upright behind me, keeping an eye on me. Um,
Okay. All right. So that's kind of where I was going here. I mean, I'm just guessing here, just spitballing, but I would think most people when they think of bass guitar, they think of a 4 string and safe
that
estimate. Okay.
that would
Now the
be
upright behind you, is that a 4 string as well?
that is a 4 string as well, just like the 4 strings that you have behind you. Yes.
Oh, you noticed. Well, these are in honor of you, my
Yes,
friend.
she's a pretty. I see that pretty girl back there. I see
That's
her.
somewhere in the 1960s Fender Jazz bass.
There you
I
go.
brought her out in honor of you. Now, I'm not going to pick it up and play it. It'd be rather like sort of quoting Bible verses to God. I'm not going to do that. But I did want to honor you with that instrument. And so let me back up. I just want to sort of take this step by step. How does the tuning of a 4 string bass and your upright bass, how does that relate to the guitar, for instance, that you picked up?
Okay. Well, the guitar, the tuning is from the bigger strings to the smaller strings. Um, Now, on a 4 string like that, and like the one that you have behind you, not the one that I'm holding, it is E, A, D, and G. So it's the first 4 strings of the 6 string on the guitar. This one has a 5 string. Now, this one is a little bit different because the 5th string is a lower string. So you start with a B on the bottom and then E, A, D, and G. So it makes it a little bit heavier on the bottom end, and that's what you want as a bass player. That's what you want.
Right, yeah, and a lot of the tunes we hear these days, bassists are really taking advantage of that low B string. You hear that big fat B, sometimes a C or D ending the
Yes,
song, and it really does sound like the mothership has just landed in your backyard, just
pretty much. Yes,
right, yeah.
and some people even take it a step farther. They take this B string and they tune it down to an A.
Is that is that a frequency that's even discernible at that point?
That's sort of earth shattering. That's like moving the whole room. That's yeah.
So when Michael Kennedy's not happy with his neighbors, he drops that down to an A and just kind of goes,
Yeah, yeah.
okay,
I'll do
all
that.
right.
I'll do that if somebody has their dogs are barking or something. I'll just tune it down to an A and turn it up a little louder. Yeah.
Now you were saying a minute ago you've got kind of the whole range. You've got a 5, you've got a 6. Tell us what all you have.
I have the 4 string. I have a 5 string, 6 string. I have a fretless and the upright, and I also have a bass ukulele. I love her. She's so small and cute and everything. I love it.
Now,
So
I have a question. Is it okay if I ask a question, Michael?
please ask me.
With this array of instruments, all these different electric basses, what's your choice? What's your thought process when you're choosing an instrument for a specific song, or when you're playing with a band? Do you have a go-to for a certain type of music or for a certain style? How do those basses? How do they get incorporated to your music?
That's a really good question. Most of my gigs that I do, I'm usually centered around 5 strings because I have the whole gambit range of of musicality for me that I need. I can get higher and I can get lower. So if I'm doing something on a solo kind of thing, like a solo bass kind of thing, then I would probably do 6 strings because that way I even have a higher and a lower. So I have all of the range. Um, fretless, that's a specialty thing. That's not a that's a sometimes girl. That's not an all the time girl. That's a sometimes girl. So that's a specialty thing, and it's harder to play because it's more like the upright. It doesn't have frets,
Hmm.
so that's a specialty thing. And the upright, well, that speaks for itself. That just gives you that big
Right.
man in the room kind of thing,
Of
you know.
course. Yeah.
So yeah,
So let's
but
just sort of throw that into the gig world then. Practically speaking, you get hired for a gig. You wouldn't automatically put the fretless in the car. You'd do that if they said, "Hey, we want fretless on half of the tunes tonight."
exactly. That's when she would join me in the car. Normally she's at home looking at me like you should play me now. You should play me now. You haven't played me in a while. So that's she stays home a lot.
All right, here's a tough question for you, sir.
Okay.
You are stranded on an island, and you can only take one of your bases. Which would it be?
Oh,
Don't you
oh,
hate questions like this?
oh, see you dirty
Not fair,
dog.
not fair.
Security, get Bill. Okay. Um, yeah. Uh, okay. I'm taking. Hmm. I'm taking my 5 string just
Connor,
because it makes it a little easier for me to write stuff because of that range, because of this extra B string. I can get the bottom and I can get the top at the same time with chords and that kind of thing, melody and that kind of thing. So yeah, it will be 5. It will be 5.
I kind of thought that's where you were going to go based on just wanted to solidify that. Um, I mean, I'd love to hear some playing. BJ, what do you think? Some bass sounds?
Yeah. Sounds great.
There you go.
Yeah, buddy.
Nice. Nice.
Now, if anybody wasn't moving to that, they must have their sound off. I couldn't stop my head, man. So this is so cool because you were talking about writing a minute ago. You know, a particular bass would be a better one for writing music. What you were doing right there, I mean, it was a bit of bass line. It was a bit of a little rock guitar funk up on top there. So
Right.
you've kind of made my next point for me. People so often associate the root, fifth, boom, ba-doom. But you do so much more with the instrument. Now, in a gigging situation or recording, whichever, I'm sure there are times when you know to just go boom, 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 right? But you can also intrinsically feel when it's time to take off and do what you just did. How do you explain that thought process?
That is, it's a tricky thing because I'm going to get a T-shirt that says, "Just because you can doesn't mean you should."
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a t. Me, I have a friend that we're already talking about. We're gonna get some T-shirts that say that. Just because you can, dot dot dot, the back of it doesn't mean you should. What that means is when you're playing something really easy, you don't have to put a lot of other stuff in the middle of it. You don't have to because the song is already going where it needs to go. Let it go where it needs to go. The singers are singing, the horns have their part, strings are doing their thing. Me and the drummer, we're locked in like this and leave it there. So if I'm doing that and the song is going and everybody's on the dance floor and they're dancing and everybody's happy, great. I don't need to. I don't need to do that because it's already set, it's already in a nice spot. Because I can doesn't mean that I should.
Right on. Can you get that design on tuxedos? Because I think
I'm
the
gonna
whole
put that on my
band,
put that on my tux for my corporate gigs. I'm gonna do that.
And
Yes.
I have
not
a
just
feeling that's something that's gained through experience over time. Like I mean it I as I remember moving through my musical career, I didn't adhere to that philosophy at all. It wasn't until later working with experienced musicians who were like, "Hey, settle down there." So, yeah, it's definitely something you learn.
That's exactly right. It didn't hit me until when I was growing up. I started playing in funk bands, doing uniforms, choreography, jumping over the trumpet player would swing his trumpet under my feet. I would jump over that. We had all these steps and stuff, and we're doing all this stuff. Well, it's a show thing. After that part of my life went away, I started playing in bands, country clubs, where the situation is not so high and intense. And I have to relax and I have to let every part in the band speak for itself, but gotta come together. So if I'm sticking out doing all that crazy stuff, it's not going to sound so unified. And I had to learn. That's when I learned that stuff. It's like, okay, I can't play everything in my head. I have to play what I need to play, not what I want to play.
That kind of
you
sorry, Bill. That kind of leads me. That took me down a path of thinking about the relationships you have between musicians. It's something that you know to musicians already. I mean, we already know that there's an immediate relationship between the drummer and the bassist. That's kind of intuitive when it comes down to it. The more you learn about that relationship, how would you put it into your words, like how you see your relationship with the electric bass and the drums? And then after that question, I want to say, how do you what do you see your relationship with other instruments, like with the keys or with the guitars, or if you have horn players coming in? Is it like, I'm just going to stand over here and we're going to hold the rhythm down, or we're going to, what philosophy do you take with that interaction between the drums and then the rest of the band?
Okay. Well, since you're a drummer, we can relate. I First things first. For a bass player, all you beginners out there, listen closely. For a bass player's job is to stay with the drummer. And for you drummers out there, your job is to stay with the bass player. You have to do this. Bass player, drummer, we have to do this. Because if we're not here, the band is terrible. So anybody in the audience will come up to me and say, "Oh, that's terrible." What they're really trying to say is what they don't know is why it's terrible. They don't know why it's terrible. It sounds bad. They just don't know why. So they say the whole band sucks. They said we're all terrible. Okay, starts with the bass, starts with the drums. So we have to lock in. Once we lock in, the keyboards can get in and fill in and make it nice and fat with the chords and all the things that they have to do. And then the guitar player can fill in with the chink, 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 chink. He can fill in the gaps and put in the holes and make it nice. Put the spice in there. Make it really nice. So while I'm doing that with the drummer, me and the drummer is locking in. We're doing good. Everything's good. Here comes the keys. And the keys come in. So now I know quarterly where to go and what to do and what not to do because of what he's playing. Now, here comes the guitar player. He's tink, 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 tink. So now he's doing that. He's putting a little spice in there. While he's doing that, that gives me an idea of every now and then I can put something in and take something out. But I don't want to fill a space. I just want to stay where I am. Me and the drummer, we stay right here. Keyboards and guitar, they can go over it and do what they need to do. But if we don't have it tight, they don't know where to go. They have nowhere to go. And so, bass players, you beginners, bass players, stay in your lane. You and the drummer, stay in your lane. Everybody else will come around you. The horns, vocals, everything else will find its spot. But we have to stay in our lane. So that's the biggest thing for me is bass player and drummer. Here we go.
Wonderful. That basically sums up what I thought you were going to say. Like, it makes so much sense. I mean, you might not know if you're beginning a musical career, or if you're watching a band on stage. What are the interactions between the drummer and the bass player? It's happening. And
Yes.
Anybody, I encourage you, if you are a beginning bass player or a beginning drummer, or if you're a seasoned veteran, and just finding yourself, where am I going? What's going on? Or if you're a concert goer and music in consumer, you can
Right.
hopefully watch that band on the stage and kind of take note, if you will, to see how that relationship is formed. Yeah, that's great, Michael. We
I
had
mean,
we did have.
I
Go
can
ahead.
even add something. You can add something really small. Um, if beginners, or even if you're not a beginner, find Billie Jean. Just get the song Billie Jean. The first thing that happens is the drums. The next thing that happens is the bass. The next thing that happens is the chords, keyboards. It goes in that pattern a lot. And the keyboards don't have anywhere to go if the bass and the drummer are not together, connected first. Most likely, that's where it starts. So just listen to Billie Jean, Michael Jackson, pick that up, and the first, before he even opens his mouth to the first verse, just listen to that. Just listen to that. And that's where it unites right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Were you getting to a question, BJ?
Yeah, actually, we had our audience is having a great discussion over here, and I actually saw a couple questions. One that I picked out right away is from Brian. He wants to know, like, when you started off, did you start with a pick? Did you do thumb or finger style first? What was your beginning to bass?
I am a hands man, so I'm a two finger guy. There are bass players like Stanley Clark who uses four fingers. They do that. I stick to these two. Now, of course, when I'm doing the funk thing and doing the thumb thing, then I add my thumb. Um, I only use a pick if it's a sometime, and again, it's a sometime thing. So if I'm playing speed metal, yeah, I can't keep up. Yeah, other than that, if I'm trying to get a certain texture or a certain sound, then I'll use a pick. But 99% of the time, it's fingers. I'm a finger guy.
Hmm. That's good. I didn't know that. I've never I can try and imagine Michael Kennedy playing speed metal now, and I don't know that I can get that image. It's burned into my head now.
You don't want that. You don't
No,
want
gotta hear that.
no
Wish list.
no. We're not doing that.
Can I back it up, or do you have some more questions,
Oh,
BJ?
go ahead, Bill. Go ahead.
Well, I want to back up to where you were talking about the bass and drums, Michael. So true that the bass and the drums have to lock. You're the anchor, you're the foundation, you are
Yes.
what the rest of the band builds. And I can tell you from personal experiences, working with sluggish bassist drummers, my right arm starts to feel like a lead weight because you're trying to drive the bus with your right arm to keep it going, right? You get what I'm saying. So that made me wonder, and maybe you did this in your practice days or still do, how important is a metronome to you as a bassist in your practice to help you learn to lock tempos in?
That is very important. Um, again, there's going to be a lot of people online that's going to hate me today because I'm going to say this probably over and over. I am a self-taught guy. So this is all God's doing. So I didn't ask for this. I didn't never come up to my mother and say, "Mom, I want a bass guitar for Christmas. I want a blue one, and it's gotta be sparkly, and I want a big giant amplifier that's like a refrigerator, and I want." I never, ever, ever asked my mother for that, ever. So with that, I just knew I had this talent. I didn't know what it was at 13 or 14. I didn't know what it was. I just knew I had this talent. So while I'm practicing in my room, I'm getting ready to date myself with the record player. With the record player, they don't know what that is, man. Just it's round and you got to put it in the spindle and get needle. They don't know. So as I'm practicing to the record player, um, I playing with the record. I'm playing with it, and then I mess up and I stop, go back, do it again, do it again, do it. So when I think I have it right, take the record off, and then I play it. And my body and head is so well, and family used to playing with drummers. I played with my two brothers before on gigs, so we are very metronome minded, and we will right where it needs to be for 5 minutes. Don't rush, don't drag. You will keep it right where it needs to be for 5 minutes. And then the song's over. Then we go to the next song. And it's instilled in me. Thank you, Jesus, but it's instilled in me. And but now the younger generation's coming up. You're starting to play. You want to feel that groove, but you know in your head and your hands, you're not quite there yet. Metronome. You have to have a metronome. I have one in my phone. I have one in my phone. I, I gotta I gotta have that. I gotta have that. Just in case just to keep myself in check. I gotta have that. And that's a good thing to have because a metronome, unless the battery goes out, the metronome won't lie. It will stay right there where it is. You guys hear that out there, right? It will stay there for as long as you want it there until you speed it up or slow it down, which means you have to chase that. You have to stay with it. And I live by that. So, and of course, BJ, as a drummer, you know that that's what you have to do. Because if you're speeding up and slowing down, and I speed up and slowing down, the people on the dance floor are going to look at both of us and say, "What the heck?"
And I'm gonna point to you, and then you're gonna point at me, and I'm like, no, not me, no, not me.
Right. Then the ball game's over and we're done. We might as well just get off stage and go have a beer somewhere and we're done because it's done. It's that's it. You know, you can't dance if you're going faster or slower, and then you faster and you slower, and then they're not comfortable. They're not happy. The club owner's mad. We get kicked out. We don't get paid. We go home and we're broke. And there you go.
Yep, that is
Amen.
that is a harsh reality. Sometimes you stay to the metronome. Get that, get
Stay to
it,
the metronome.
internalize it, internalize it.
Internalize. Yes.
Yes. We did have a question. What do you have to say about the new bass players read music, and what role does sheet music play in the predominance of your gigs? Great words from Rich there. So like new bass players coming up, learning to read music. I know that you had kind of a different experience with your career in bass, but like how do you feel about sheet music development, being able to read music, or learning through rote through I don't know what it's called, just learning through
By
rote
road, learning
by
by
ear,
road. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Learning by ear. Yeah. You know, I would say to learn it. Learn to read music. That can never be a bad thing. It can never be a bad thing to learn how to read music because there's avenues that you can play in as a musician, as a professional. There's avenues that you can play in that require you to read. There's avenues that as professionals that don't require you to read. Um, pay scales are
Mm-hmm.
different.
Mm-hmm.
Job opportunities are different. Placement is different. The phone calls are different. So, but you have, I think as a young person coming up, learn it. Can't be a bad thing. It can't be a bad thing. I tried to learn it and I got frustrated and I didn't have any, again, I didn't have any tutors or any lessons. So I got frustrated. While I was getting frustrated, here I am starting to play in bands. Now I don't need it because we all listened to the stereo, learned the song, did it. So I didn't need it. And but some people don't have that kind of ear. We're all human. We're all different. Some people just don't have that thing. Learn it because it can't be a bad thing to have.
Amen. I think a good summation is if you are a great ear player, you're going to be able to play in pretty much any band where it's here's the songs, figure them out, let's do the gig. If you're a great ear player, or even not a great ear player, but you can still figure the tunes out, but you also teach yourself how to read, guess what? You can do those ear gigs, and then when a show comes along and here's the book, one, two, three, go, you can do both, cover both
Bonus.
worlds.
That's a bonus.
So, God obviously blessed you immensely with your talent, Michael. And as we come up, all of us, whatever our avenue is, whether it's self-taught, teachers, mixture of both, incredibly innate talent, or we have to struggle at it, we all have people that we hear, we listen to, we look up to, and they're mentors to us, whether they know it or not. Who are some of yours?
Well, I have a ton of influences. I I have a ton of people who I grew up listening to, and as a bass player, I have bass artists that I really love. As a musician, I have other artists I listen to. So since I gravitated, well, migrated, that's the word, migrated to other instruments, guitar, keyboards, sax, drums. As I migrated to other instruments, and I have a whole bunch of artists that I listen to for that. But as far as bass players, and I had to write a list real quick because I had a feeling this question was going to happen. See if I can do this in one breath. Here we go. Larry Graham, Stanley Clark, Victor Wooten, Mark King, Chuck Rainey, Nathaniel Phillips, Louis Johnson, Jaco Pastorius, Alan Caron, James Jamerson, Anthony Jackson, Marcus Miller. So there's a lot of them there. And everybody has, I'm going to throw this out again. Everybody's human. We're all different. We all don't think the same way. BJ might want his steak medium rare. I might make mine medium well. It doesn't mean that we don't like steak. We just like it differently. We're still going to eat it. It's just different. So all of these different bass players that I mentioned all have little things that are different about them. And that's what I like about them. So as beginning bass players, I'm going back to you guys again, beginning bass players, I'm going to go back to you. If you're listening to music, listen to as much different music that you can. Don't get stuck on one thing. Just because you like funk, great. But there's more artists than just funk because they all have something to say and they all have a different style. And you might be surprised it's something that you hear from a rock band. God, that guy was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. I like that lick. Might be. Then you can incorporate it in that in your style. That's all of these different guys: Stanley Clark, Larry Graham, Mark King, Nathaniel Phillips, Louis Johnson, Daco. Come on, all of these, Anthony Jackson, James Jamerson. They're all different, but we all play bass and we all have fun doing it. That's the biggest.
Right on. And you actually touched right at the heart of one of the questions I have here. And the question being, who is your single most influential bassist? In parentheses, they say Jaco Pastorius, maybe. And do you strive to emulate that style of playing? So whether it's Jaco or one of the others, do you try to emulate their particular style?
My upbringing, there were three people that I really gravitated to, maybe four. Um, Larry Graham, because he was the inventor of the pluck string. He was the inventor of all of that. So yes, him. Stanley Clark sort of innovated the things that he wanted to do with bass. He sort of put it a little bit more out in front, made it a little bit more of a lead instrument. So I liked him for that. Jaco, look, anybody who can take a bass that's normal, frets in it, the frets, the little lines, the little line things, that was on a rehearsal and decided he didn't want the frets in anymore and left this rehearsal and went home and took them out with pliers, filled it in with wood glue, and went back to the gig that same night and played it like it wasn't even there. You got to be the guy. So yes, Jaco, absolutely fretless Jaco. That's hands down. That's the dude. As far as groove, James Jamerson, James Brown, Motown, groove. That's it. So those four for me, that was my main influences when I grew up. I started listening to everybody else, and then my mind's all messed up after that.
That's amazing, Michael. I did not know that story about Jaco. I mean,
That's
I know
that's
what an
crazy.
amazing, yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, really, when you're doing the thumb slap, that's kind of the one guy. You're grooving, it's another guy. When you're doing your fretless, so really you are kind of an amalgam of your four main influences. I'm going to say that safe to
Yes,
say. Good. I've got
yes.
this is a great question. This has got to be from a player. Can you talk about the difference between playing ahead or behind the beat versus dragging or rushing? What's the difference?
Ah, now you're getting to to the nuts and bolts of stuff. Okay. Okay. So um, you want to stay with as a bass player, as a bass player, you want to stay with the drummer. So, but there are instances where it feels that you can push just a little forward without rushing the band. Just push a little forward. So it's very hard to do consciously, but you go just ahead of the beat just a little, and it's very, very hard to do. But it's you can push, or you can pull back and play behind the beat a little bit, and sometimes that makes it funkier. Whatever groove you're in, it makes it funkier if you pull back a little bit, as opposed to going faster on the metronome. If the song is on 120 BPMs, beats per minute, if it's 120, you don't want to go 125. You don't want to go 115. You want to stay around 120. Of course, we're human and we will fluctuate from 120 to 121, maybe 122, come back. Maybe 119, come back. You don't want to go too far. And it's very difficult to do, but it's really upon feel, upon what you're doing and what the drummer's doing and how the band feels. We have to get that relationship, that relationship, and we figure it out because it's difficult. And we're all human. Some people like to rush, some people like to drag. So we have to try to keep that metronome, as you were talking about, keep that metronome there. But sometimes you can push it just a little bit and make it feel good without actually making it faster, or you can pull it back a little bit. Me personally, as a bass player, the drummer has to stay there. It's my job to fall back a little bit or push up a little bit. If I fall back a little bit, it feels like it's funkier and it feels like it's slower. It's really not, but it feels like it's slower. And I can push ahead and it sort of makes it feel like it's speeding up. It's not, but it feels like it's speeding up. Very difficult to do. But once you get a drummer that you know that you can lock into all the time without fail, that's, that's where you base what you have to do as a bass player. Head, falling back.
Right on. And it is such an intrinsic feel thing. And I think when you're, well, I think I know when you're playing a gig with a drummer where the two of you, you work with people long enough and you start thinking as one brain. That drummer's going to know when you're, I mean, even before you start to do it, probably, okay, here we come. I know it's going to maybe kind of lay back just a slight bit. Or we're playing maybe a Stray Cats tune and we're going to start kind of jumping to the top of that beat a little bit. And that to me is really where so much of the excitement in music comes, live music in particular.
Yes.
It's just like adding a little extra frosting on the cake, man. You just go, wow, I don't know what happened, but this tastes like extra good now. So
Yes.
I want to. You mentioned something at the beginning of our session here, and I think it's time. We've talked about the bass anchoring the band, the groove. Something else the bass does, though, a lot of is it tells you what the song is right off the bat.
Yes.
We
There's a
call it
lot of times.
the
There's a
hook.
lot of times that when the song starts on the radio, you're like, oh, that's it. I already know what song that is. I already know because of how that bass is, and it starts the song. You instantly know what it is. So, okay, I'll tell you what. Let's do this. BJ,
Yes,
give
sir.
me a number. Give me a number between 10 and 20.
Let's see. Let's go for. I like 8. It's very round on both ends.
So between 10 and 20, 18. You want to do an
18.
18?
Let's do 12.
18.
Let's do 8
Okay.
plus. We'll split the difference.
Okay, 12. Mr. Bill, give me a number between 10 and 20.
I'm going to go with 14.
14. Okay, so you got 12 and 14. So we're going to do 13. Let's see. Okay, so we're somewhere around, okay, 13. Okay, So this is what I need from you, Mr. Bill. I'm gonna for the class, I'm gonna play 13 songs, parts of them, 13 songs that either A, start with the bass, or B, are very prominent bass lines that you know, oh, that's the song. I'm gonna play 13 songs of that. Not gonna take long. We won't be here all day. It's gonna be 13 songs. Mr. Bill, I'm not gonna be able to count this because I'm gonna be busy trying to do these. So you keep track of 13. When you get to 13, let me know. All right.
Hit the buzzer kind of thing at
Yeah, sort of hit
13.
the button. Yeah, the lights go off and everybody goes home, and there you go. All right, we're gonna start it with. Hold on, I'm gonna sort of stand for this because that way you can see me play and here we go. Let's start here. Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. Wait a minute. Down, going down. Let's prove tonight. Get this spice of life. Oh. Don't stop believing. I said a hip hop, hip hop, and don't stop rocking to the bang bang. Boogie your thoughts up the rhythm of the boogity beat. And now what you hear is not a test. I'm rapping to the beat, and me, the crew, and my friends are gonna try to move your beat. Same song. Good times. These are the good times. Leave your cares behind. Wait a minute. I want you back. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Oh, I know. I got it. Wait a minute. Give it to me, baby. Or we can go here. How about I heard it through the grapevine. How much longer would you be my baby? Ooh, ooh, ooh. I heard it through the grapevine. How much longer would you be my baby? See, you guys are in TV land. You guys are all grooving to me right now. Wait a minute. I got to see. Oh, okay. That's just. Ain't that's just. That's just. Same song. She's a very kinky girl. The kind you won't pick up to my door. And she'll never let your spirits down. Once you get her off the streets. Oh, girl. Hold on. A lovely day, 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 lovely day. Hold on. I've got sunshine on a cloudy day. All right, come on, y'all. Let's go to the chorus. I guess you say what can make me feel this way. Hold on. Down, funk you up. Say up, down, funk you up. Say up, down, funk you up. Say up, down, funk you up. See, we can do this all day. That's 13.
Yep.
See, you kept count too.
I can sort of count.
Yeah, all those songs would be lost without that electric bass, without that bass in it.
Yeah.
That'd be just so empty and void of of any flow, any blood flow in there, any pulse. Um, it's remarkable to understand how just important that part of the band is, that part of the music is, and just holding it down, the thread throughout. Man, that's it's amazing to think about. I've been reading the questions too along. And this is a question I have.
Okay.
I love all of that. I love those 13 songs. You probably keep going all day long,
There's more. There's a
all
whole
day.
lot more.
But
Yeah.
I wanted to get to this question too. This is from John Hartford. Um, like when you have, like, say you've got a show coming up or something, and you've got a batch, and what is your system? What is your system for getting through those songs and getting them learned so that you don't have to stare at a piece of paper during the gig or whatnot? What is your process? I know each of us probably has our own different system, but like, what is the one that you go through when you're preparing for a show like that?
That happens quite a bit. What I try to do, if I don't know the songs that I'm learning, listen to them all the way through at least twice. Um, Not only am I listening to my part, but I'm listening to the whole band as a whole and how my part incorporates and meshes with everything in that song. Then, if I can't, if it's something sort of difficult and they have some different changes to it, some different chord structures, maybe little accents or maybe fills, I will write them out in my own form so I can remember it. A little cheat sheet, as I work, a little cheat sheet. I know John does that. We do little cheat sheets and just write it down. And so when that part comes up, I read it. There it is. Play it. Done. So I write the song as the title, the artist, the key, the tempo. That sort of tells me how fast or slow I need to play this song. And um, then I will write out the the standard bass line, whatever the standard part is. And then if I need to write anything else as far as where the bridge goes or if there's a repeat chorus, write out the pattern of the song. I write out the pattern so I know where it goes. Verse, pre-chorus, chorus. Back to the verse, pre-chorus, chorus. Bridge, stop, chorus, out. I'll write it out. That I won't get lost unless the singer decides to do something else or turn the thing or whatever he wants to do. I just have to follow along with the paper and I follow along with the band. But that's my form. Just write everything out that I need. That's most more than likely I don't need to write the whole song out, just parts of it, just to know, for memory's sake, and then go on to the next thing.
You touched on a really important part of, in particular, live playing too, Michael. Because yeah, you bring your cheat sheets, whatever charts you've made, and you're earing your way through the song. But if the singer decides to go back to the verse instead of the chorus, you as a player and the entire band, you got to be on your game, right? You can't go, wait, where are we? Because then the whole song falls apart. Or, for instance, not to pick on anybody, but say the guitar player, because we are notorious for this, just takes it right down the rails and says, "This is where we're going, man. I don't care what the song does." You got to be on your game. You got to be listening all the time.
Got to be listening the whole time. You got to be flexible because, well, anybody that's out there that knows me and plays with me, if I'm the leader of the band or if I'm leading the the MD, musical director, whatever. If I'm that guy, I have a tendency, shame on me, I have a tendency to, to make left turns or right turns or sometimes U turns. Just follow me, go with me, and I will do my absolute best to not lead you into a tree. So there are times when we get to a certain part of the song, I will turn something around. That just means you're on the bandstand being aware of your surroundings. You're not just in your own zone doing your thing with your head down and you're not looking at anybody and you're just, I know I'm playing good. I'm playing really good. And then they go to the bridge and you're not supposed to go to the bridge and you go, uh oh, Uh-oh, there goes that train and it just ran over my legs. There you go. Okay. So you don't want that. So you look up and you just keep following along, keep an eye on everybody. And if the leader says, bridge now, you go to the bridge now. No matter what the sheet says, no matter what the song is on the record that you learned. If he goes to the bridge, you go to the bridge.
Amen. And talking about when you were saying if I'm the leader, as in yourself, you really reminded me of how much you have done for the Museum of Making Music. We had our Low exhibition a few years ago. You were a part of, I think it was what, 6 or 7 Low instrument players, bass clarinet, yourself, bass drum, I believe, as well.
Yes.
But one of the most, for me, fascinating things, because I mean, I've known you as a great player for years, but I had no idea you could stand on a stage with literally a room full of people as a solo bassist and compel a 2-hour concert. And hats off to you, bravo for that. What was that like? One man, one player.
You really want to
Go.
know what that was like?
Yeah, I do.
That's what it was like. For me, internally, that's what was going on. Externally, I'm just trying to do my thing. But internally, that wasn't going on with me. I'm gonna so for those people who are looking at me online right now and they were at that show of the low the power and beauty of bass. For those people who were at that show, I'm going to be totally honest with you right now. Number one, we did not have a rehearsal. Number two, everything that happened was written out by me at 3 o'clock in the morning, the night before, the morning before the show, of how it was going to go. Number three, I was nervous as hell. And number four, I did a lot of praying before the show.
Well, I'll tell you what, it all paid off because the internal certainly did not show. What we saw was an externally amazing, ridiculously gifted musician taking us on a bass journey that I think it's safe to say not many of us had ever experienced before. Michael, we're coming up on the hour, and your time has been so generous and gracious. I do have one more question here, and then I'd like to throw a parting thought out. BJ, if there's anything else, though, please stop me. This
Well,
question in.
yeah, that's good. I know we have time for just one more question, and then I'd like to get some, just maybe a parting word from Michael before we head out for the day.
Very cool. So, Michael, here's the question I see in front of me. What practice drills do you do, if any? Cycle of fourths, so on and so forth. What do you do to warm up?
My biggest thing I warm up is trying to get my dexterity, just to get my hands warmed up, just to get both hands used to doing this again. Even though I've done it for 40 years. You got that right. Yeah, write that down. Even though I've been, even though I've done it for that long, still, if I, let's say, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is done, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I don't touch the thing at all. I don't touch it at all. I'm exercising, I'm go to the gym, I'm go play baseball, whatever else I do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, don't touch this thing at all. She's in the case looking at me like I'm crazy. 3 days. Thursday, I get out and practice to get it together. The first thing I do, besides tuning it correctly, the first thing I do is do a chromatic scale. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's playing every single note one at a time. There's only 12 notes, and I'm just doing all 12 of them slowly to get them. Just to get my fingers moving, and then I'll end up and faster and faster, and just get my hands here, understanding 1, 2, 3, 4, and getting here, making sure I'm on the right proper string. That's the first thing I do. I don't do any other scales except that chromatic. Then I can do anything else. After that, then I'll just start playing, some fourths and some fifths and some octaves and whatever else I feel. But I have to warm up, and that's the best way for me to warm up.
Cool. So waking the fingers back up, getting them used to
Yeah.
doing it again. Michael, this has been like fantastic. I mean, I've learned tons just in this hour myself. So maybe some parting thoughts. A question, BJ, you had the other day, and I think this is a great way to sort of sign off with your thoughts on this. Where do you see the bass heading in 10, 20, 40, 50 years?
Yeah.
From where bass started, being the guy in the back of the band, just sort of holding it down and not really being out in front. And then guys like Stanley Clark back in the 70s sort of brought it out a little bit, made it sort of more of a lead instrument. Um, and then everybody sort of took off in different directions from there. Um, you know, uh, Now there are lots of lead bass players, but there are still guys who just hang in the back and keep that groove solid so the people can dance, so the people can tap their feet and bob their head while they're driving down the street. There are still those guys. I think that the sky's the limit. So um, I'm one of those guys who I go either way. I can hold the groove down or I can be a lead guy. I taught myself this whole thing. So then I taught myself, which is something else that we didn't touch on. I taught myself how to scat. So, the George Benson scatting thing, I sort of taught myself that because my brother, shame on him, one of my brothers, uh, told me when I was about 17 that I had to sing in the band. I didn't want to sing. I was having way too much fun playing bass. Didn't want to sing. He said I had to sing. So that opened my mouth up, and they figured out, oh my gosh, he's in pitch, he's in key. Oh, well, you need to sing background more often. Hey, keep going. And then a couple of months later, my brother said, oh, you got to sing a lead song now. Oh, I stamped my feet and got mad, and I did. Oh, but I ended up doing it. So I taught myself how to. I taught myself how to do that. So just this their skies are the limit, and there's so many artists out there. There's so many great bass players. Man, the list that I had, that's just the guy that I like that hit me. There are so many good bass players, and you can get on YouTube and you can do that all day and never see the same guy twice. There's so many good artists out there. Just explore, explore, figure out what you want to do, explore. It might not sound good to that guy, but it might be great to you. It might be good to this guy, and he might be a drummer. So you're like, oh, great, well, we can do this together. Go. The sky is the limit. There's no ending for what this bass can do for you.
Right on. I think there's so many takeaways from today, but sort of the granddaddy of all is don't be afraid. Get out there and try it. What do you
Do
have
it.
to lose? Hey, BJ, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you, Michael.
I agree. Those are wonderful words. Wonderful words. If you are looking to be a bass player, there's lots of artists, guys and gals out there who have made a name for themselves playing bass, and we were so happy to talk to one of them here. Michael Kennedy, thank you for your time today, man. It was enlightening. It was we went places that I didn't think we were going to go, and it was a definite learning experience for me, and hopefully inspiration to other musicians out there who are interested in the electric bass and maybe learning and or playing and or enjoying that instrument. Thanks again. I apologize. I'm still figuring out. I've got some new equipment, so if it seems like my lips are moving and the sound is not coming out of my mouth at the same time my lips are moving, I'm figuring it out. Don't worry. We'll get it dialed in before you know it. Otherwise, I do appreciate your time. Thank you for inviting us into your home for Mom at Home. And until then, have a great day. Take care. And we will see you next week for new episodes of Mom at Home, Wednesdays and Fridays. All right, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.